allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If we could have the reading of the mission and vision.
Richmond Community Schools guide students on pathways of learning to a future of limitless possibilities.
Richmond Community Schools' vision statement is a community nurturing mind, body, and spirit to prepare students for lives of choice, purpose, and service.
Thank you both. Public commentary. Item 2, Mrs. Claypool.
Bridget will have it.
Mrs. Hess.
Hello, we have two speakers tonight. Our first speaker is Richmond High School student Jaime Perez Arduino. So here you go.
Thank you.
Okay, so at the previous public meeting before it got abruptly shut down, what I originally wanted to talk about was that I wanted to preempt comments about the favorite part of my day contract that was in the agenda at that meeting. And to be clear, I am completely for these trainings. What my concern was that there have been instances from which these trainings have been conducted, and leaks from those presentations that have come out have shown objectively bad, or at the very least optically bad information. And to help try to avoid and mitigate any sort of public outcry from that, was that I would have advised the board to seek assistance or some sort of advisory role from the sociology professors from either Earlham or IU, one of those two, so that they could look over the information that gets shown to ensure that it is appropriate, that it is factually correct, and that it is not optically bad for the school corporation should material from those trainings get leaked out. Because as we've seen over the past year, the information from those trainings have been leaked out, and they have been very optically bad, to the point where you get major public controversy made about it because of sociological terms that get brought up that are very nuanced but get condensed in these trainings. So that would be what my advice is for the board. And I had something else that I wanted to speak on. On behalf of the GSA, we appreciate that steps have already been taken in regards with racial implicit bias and the microaggressions, which I previously mentioned. We ask that you all include the LGBT community in that effort. We respectfully expect teachers to use preferred names and pronouns of students, but there have been instances, and continue to be instances, in which, whether maliciously or not, these needs have not been met. This could be addressed through the board seeking professional development for staff regarding transgender students' preferred names and preferred pronouns, as has been done with racial trainings that are ongoing right now. Furthermore, the issue of there not being a centrally located gender-neutral bathroom remains constant. We have a student-created presentation pertaining to this, and we would like to have future meetings about this bathroom to resolve this issue. That'll be all. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next speaker is Richmond High School Student Body President Jimmy Freibert. Freibert.
Ahoy there. As aforementioned, I am the student body president, James Freiberger. They can just call me Jimmy. I'm also leader of the Council, a humanitarian reform organization. And today I address you all with a, you could see it as minor, but what I believe to truly be a major concern of mine. And this involves the COVID situation once again. But first, I do applaud you all for continuing to use your constitutional right to prevent plague. right? Every day I'll see Miss Wolpe on the announcements encouraging people to continue wearing masks. As far as that goes, there's no discouragement. I'm really glad that we live in a school system in which that's the case. What I'm more concerned about in this case are some of the students. A trend I've noticed is a very sizable portion of students, whether in my classroom or in the hallways, they'll have their mask below their nose, or some may have their mask off at all. I'll keep it anonymous, but for example, having a mask below the nose completely negates any sort of benefit that one would retain from wearing a mask. Now, I do understand that this is quite a tricky issue to solve. For example, a teacher couldn't just send every student who has their mask below their nose to the office. They wouldn't have the time nor resources to do that. Well, I think maybe the issue here is a sort of desensitization. After enduring the COVID pandemic for 2 years, people become desensitized. Although doing such a thing very well could put people's lives at risk, they sort of subconsciously ignore that factor. The same way that I may hear of terrible things happening in a foreign country, yet the death of someone close to me may cause me more despair. And I think the solution to this would simply be to continue to spread awareness on what COVID can do to people. Not only students, but teachers have been quarantined. I know one teacher has been gone for weeks and weeks on end from COVID. And that's bad because people can die, and I don't want people to die, if you know what I mean. So my main incentive in telling you all this is, since you don't necessarily have that open and classroom experience at the moment, I want to make this an issue you're all aware of, and perhaps we can collaborate in the future to find a solution to this, whether doing a campaign on the benefits of wearing a mask and how these safety guidelines can save lives, or something of that nature. That's about it. See ya.
Thank you. Anyone else?
We're done. All done.
Thank you. Moving on to consent items. Dr. Wright?
Board President, trustees, I ask that we gain approval of consent items 3.01, 3.02, and 3.03.
With the addendum that you're seeing.
Mr. President, I move for approval of the consent items as presented with the addendums that were at our workstations.
Motion from Aaron Stevens,
Second.
second by Kristen Brenton. Any questions or comments? I'll ask Mr. Cross, is it correct Mr. Schleifer cannot vote?
He can vote on everything but the budget, so so it's kind of the worst of both worlds for you. You still got to do a roll call vote.
Okay. So I will just call the roll. Please signify by aye for the affirmative or nay for a down vote. John Weber, aye. Jeff Schleifer, aye. Paul Stoltz,
Aye.
Brad Walton, aye. Kristen Brenton,
Aye.
Aaron Stevens,
Aye.
Keith Morey.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Moving on to action items. Dr. Wright.
President Weber, trustees, I ask that our attention be turned to Mrs. Scout, who is not here present, to present action item 4.01.
Okay, if it pleases the board, I can just run through each of the items since it looks like most of them are mine. If you have any questions, please stop me. Yeah. All right, so the first action item is for approval of our line 2 resolution. This provides me with the ability to make adjustments to the 1782, which is the form that we received prior to the budget order. It just clarifies the actual costs that we have seen for the remaining half of the fiscal year 2021, which is July 1 through December 31. It allows me the authority to reduce that line on Form 3 so that we can more accurately reflect our actual costs. So it's my recommendation that the Board of School Trustees approves the 2022 budget line 2 resolution and grants ES Treasurer and Chief Financial Officer the proper authority to reduce line 2 on Form 3 for the 22 budget.
I'll move.
Motion by Keith Morey,
Second.
second by Jeff Slifer. Any second? Any questions or comments?
Just try to get a second. Second.
Is that Aaron?
Aaron, second.
Second by Aaron Stevens. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, and so Jeff cannot vote on any of Karen's.
Not on the budget matters.
Okay,
Go
Sure.
through
is everything through the easement?
I think you can go to 405, just setting a public hearing.
Okay. All right. So back to item 4.01, budget resolution, with no additional questions or comments? I will- Mr. Schleifer is not voting. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0.
All right, our next item is the 2022 budget adoption. Tonight it's my recommendation that the Board of School Trustees approve and sign the 2022 budgets as they've been presented on Forms 1 through 4, and also including the adoption of the Form 4 Resolution of Appropriations and Tax Rates. These budgets have been presented to the board, published as required, and reviewed during a public hearing held on September 22nd, 2021. Tonight is the date set for the adoption of budgets, and it is my recommendation that we approve them as they have been presented.
Thank you.
I move we approve action item 4.02.
Motion by Kristen Brunton,
I'll second.
second by Nicole Stoltz. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0.
Okay, moving on. We have the 2022 through 2024 Capital Projects Fund Plan adoption this evening. The public hearing for the plan was held on September 22nd, 2021. Action is now required tonight, October 6th, to adopt the appropriate resolution for the capital projects plan. After the adoption of the plan resolution, taxpayers have 10 days to set forth their objections to the county auditor. After the 10 days, the administration will procure a certificate of no remonstrance from the auditor, and no further action will be taking place until this plan is reviewed by the Division of Local Government Finance. It's my recommendation tonight that the Board of School Trustees adopts the 2022 to 2024 capital projects plan as it has been presented.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I move to approve 4.03, the 2022-2024 Capital Projects Fund Plan adoption.
Thank you. Motion from Aaron Stevens,
Second.
second by Keith Morey. Any questions or comments? Jeff, if you had comments on any of these, you would speak up, please. Hearing no questions or comments, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0.
Okay, it is now time for the adoption of the 2022 through 2026 bus replacement plan. Public hearing for the plan was held on September 22nd, 2021, and action is now required to adopt the appropriate resolution. It is my recommendation that the Board of School Trustees adopts the 2022 through 2026 bus replacement plan as it has been presented.
Thank you.
I move that we adopt the bus replacement plan.
Motion by Nicole Stoltz,
Second.
second by Aaron Stevens. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0.
All right, on to other matters. This is a request for permission to advertise for a public hearing with regard to the debt service fund. The administration is requesting permission from the school board to advertise for a public hearing on an additional appropriation in excess of the budget for the current year. It is my recommendation that the board approve the request to advertise for public hearing on the additional appropriation for the 2021 debt service fund. We will be having a public hearing on this and requesting an additional appropriation of $300,000, which does exist in our current cash balance. And this is simply to correct an appropriation issue during the 2021 budget process. So it is my recommendation tonight that this be advertised. We will advertise it in the Palladium item as well as on the Gateway Transparency Portal.
Thank you.
I move that we approve the request to advertise for public hearing.
Motion by Keith Morey,
Second.
second by Kristen Brenton. Any questions or comments? And we'll call the roll. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. John Weber, aye. Jeff Schleifer? Aye. Nicole Stoltz?
Aye.
Brad Walton? Aye. Kristen Brenton?
Aye.
Aaron Stevens?
Aye.
Keith Morey?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. And item 4.06.
Okay, before you tonight is a request from the city of Richmond for a temporary easement. The area of property that this is relative to is over by the Warner Building. They will be doing some work on the sidewalks and what is considered the loop by the city. So they're just asking for some temporary use of that area while they do that work. So that is before you tonight, and upon signatures, then we will return it to their council for further work.
And we're gaining $1,000 just for the temporary use of it.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I was just kind of confused about this one a little bit.
Thank you. We have to entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve it.
Motion by Keith Morey,
Second.
second by Kristen Brenton. Any other questions or comments or clarification?
Yeah, I would, when does it expire?
When the work is done, usually, so that they, Ronnie will have to help me out a little bit with this, but usually it's just for the time that the work is being done, and then upon completion, it just reverts. back
I'm
to
not,
that.
I'm not that conversant with the overall scope of the project, to know where this area is. I mean, I would expect that probably extend into next construction season. Start the summer, I mean, it's.
They've been doing prep work,
Yeah, and weather permitting, and
for
cost
the last at least year. And so I think that'll continue till the end of the project.
And I don't know the surface, depending on the asphalt will stand over. It really is no imposition on us.
Okay. No, I was
Amount
just,
is less than 12.01.
yeah,
That money, as Karen pointed out,
thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying, or please say aye. I will call the roll. Those opposed, please respond with nay. John Weber, aye. Jeff Schleifer? Aye. Nicole Stoltz?
Aye.
Brad Walton? Aye. Kristen Brenton?
Aye.
Aaron Stevens?
Aye.
Keith Morey?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. And moving on to
But we actually have, the hard copy of And we have
I'm getting there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, great, okay.
Sorry about that. Well, I'm turning it back over to you. We've added an item, it's on your electronic copy, item 4. I'll read it before I give it to you. 4.07, request for alcohol service for the Richmond Art Museum. Dr. Wright, will you introduce that?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Member.
Thank you, sir.
If it's shining, it's
Interesting. Nevertheless, coming before the board for action item 4.07, the request for alcohol service for the Richmond Art Museum. We have the 2 events, Art on the Brink, November 19th of this year, as well as 3 Rivers Memory Event Tour on November 3rd of this year. And I come before you all to ask for approval of alcohol during these 2 events here at the Richmond Art Museum.
Thank you, sir. Happy to entertain a motion.
I move to approve. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll move to approve both of these.
Motion by Nicole Stoltz,
I'll second.
second by Aaron Stevens. Any questions or comments?
It's a question, and maybe one of Dr. Ryder inquire of people in high school. I had a midwife of this whole thing, what you recall, and I was just curious if it's working okay, if there are glitches and problems that we need to be aware of. I think this is what the 3rd event for RAN, of course, the class of 71, I think. And so it's 4 events, and I think I'm sensitive to the fact that we policies and procedures, so I just put that out there. That's where it is.
It's time to turn across everything seems to be, not just as the board is planning, it's going off our kitchen.
The insurance
We-
piece is
we
what
have-
I'm worried about.
Well, we have had one question from RAM, and it is pertaining to the down payment as well as the need for certificate of insurance. If they need to provide it with each event request, or if it's a one-time and that just counts if they use the same caterer. I do not have a good answer for that because the way that it's written, it's per event. So if they just provide it, then we're good. And any kind of security deposits are always returned after the event. So I just don't know what the will of the board is on that because right now it does stand that we would get that for each event, even if it's the same caterer. So I don't.
Well, certificate of insurance or liability insurance is probably going to show a policy.
Right.
Look at and see if the policy is still in effect.
Right.
I wouldn't second guess that. The alcohol policy is going to be sensitive to alcohol served and the entity that's providing that, and that's probably one I think is going to.
I don't think it's none burden. I mean, it's a reasonable thing to ask.
Okay.
And I will just simply add, so the reason this was put on the agenda last minute is the paperwork came in late because the timeline, the time sensitivity, we thought if we could get it on this meeting, that would help all parties involved. And so we accelerated and added it today to the agenda. So if there's any questions on that, I did read through it. I don't know. I think everyone else had a chance to at least look at it. So any other questions or comments?
Is that something we might want to revise? Is just the amount of time that we ask for them to submit prior to?
I
You see
mean,
what I'm saying?
it would have gone to the 27th board meeting, or I believe was their next one,
Okay.
which would have been before their event.
I would hope we'd have flexibility on that.
Yeah, I think to have, I mean,
I
so
don't think it's set in stone.
I think but that just makes it tight for everyone. So since we had the opportunity to bring it forward, I don't know that I mean,
So we're
well,
good.
the board.
Okay.
Yes, I think the process was, I don't know why we got the paperwork so late, but I think that it looked like it was originally dated in May, maybe. But getting it done.
I think it's important for this board to understand that this issue was discussed over a period of time, going back several years, and various boards had various concerns. And so I think when I drafted this, I think we tried to build in as much lead time as possible in case it would be a situation where there would be questions from the board when the matter was presented that couldn't be answered that evening, even if you had someone representing the press, which we don't, to give everybody time to process. And so, fortunately, these first few have been
think having it be an organization that's already utilized it makes a difference as well, right? If it was somebody from the outside that we've never had anything to do with, that might make us go, oh, okay, let's follow through. I mean, this has not taken an inordinate amount of time from our board meeting, so I don't feel like it's a problem.
Any other questions or comments? All right, I will call the roll. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, please say nay. John Weber, aye. Jeff Slifer, aye. Nicole Stoltz,
Aye.
Brad Walton, aye. Kristen Brennan,
Aye.
Aaron Stevens,
Aye.
Keith Moore.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. We're on the policy review and update. Policy 5.01, or excuse me, item 5.01, policy 6540, technology privacy. Second reading and approval. Happy to entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move that we approve policy 6540, the technology privacy second reading, on second reading.
Motion by Aaron Stevens,
Second.
second by Kristen Brennan. Do we have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, please signify by saying nay. John Weber, aye. Jeff Slifer, aye. Nicole Stoltz,
Aye.
Brad Walton, aye. Kristen Brennan,
Aye.
Aaron Stevens,
Aye.
Keith Moore.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Item 5.02, new policy. Policy 6545, acceptable use, staff and student, first reading. I'm going to have Brandon speak on this.
You might want to take a look at 502 in light of 503 and 504, since I think
They're all,
I think you're eliminating two, combining, and that's a good suggestion. That's what Brandon.
could you mind speaking on this, that grouping?
What would the question be?
How we're eliminating the two policies.
So the ISBA, they require us to have a policy, and it has to be put in effect by January 1st, 2022. And they give us a sample policy. So Brandon read over the sample policy, and he said that was, now he can take over.
So following what Kim said, looking at both of our older policies and taking a look at the sample policy, it covers everything. I mean, it's verbatim what we would need to cover all of our bases as far as acceptable use, and it would work both ways, both staff and students. So I didn't see the point of having the two old ones as well as that new one as well. So it just made more sense to kind of combine them in one.
All right.
My only question would be, if 5.02 is the new acceptable use for staff and student policy, that's only going to go to second read, correct?
Correct.
So do we want to delete the old acceptable use before the?
You're
Right.
deleting it on first reading, so I guess in theory, you can come back on second reading and change your minds, what you have in place and not.
Okay, so 5.03, we aren't deleting. This is the first round of, like, hey, we're putting it up for deletion, and then we'll vote to permanent delete it. Okay, all right.
You're thinking about bundling.
Loving the policy.
So can we bundle item 5.02, 5.03, and 5.04? No.
I would move to put all three of those. Policy 5.02,
If you could read through.
yeah,
everybody.
to move policy 6545, acceptable use staff and student, to second read. And then I would like to also, at the same time, with one motion, advance deleting policy 6543, student education, technology, acceptable use, and safety, and delete policy 6544, staff education, technology, acceptable use, and safety to second reading up for deletion. I don't know how that's supposed to be worded.
Wow.
I think you got it.
Okay,
Thank you.
let's do this.
We have a second.
I'll second that.
Motion by Keith Morey, second by Nicole Stoltz. Any other questions or comments? Hearing
Thank you.
none, I will call the roll. Please signify with an aye for affirmative or nay if you oppose. John Weber, aye. Jeff Slifer, aye. Nicole Stoltz,
Aye.
Brad Walton, aye. Kristen Brenton,
Aye.
Aaron Stevens,
Aye.
Keith Morey.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. That takes us to our work session. So Dr. Wright.
Yes, Board President, trustees, I ask that we extend the invitation of Mr. Perkins to share with us a lot of the amazing things that are going on in our technology department. As we know, as we continue to move into the 21st century, lifestyles, whether it be personal and or professional technology, whether it's important on so much of what we do. As we can see, we have an audience outside of our facility as well. Gadgetry that's inside, and all the bells and whistles, and there is one particular department that is responsible for all of that. The technology department, so Mr. Perkins, if you don't mind joining us to share some of the great things that are going on in your district, our new department, and the other aspects found in your leadership.
Good evening, members of the board. I would like to start off by saying I'm going to make this very short and concise because that's how I like to be. And also, that gives you guys more than enough time to ask any questions, make any comments, or have any further conversations on anything that you do see. What I would like to start with is some of the things that I've looked at as a leader and moving into this role, just some of the stuff as far as standards and expectations in the department as a whole. I've redone certain things that we didn't do as well in the past as we could have. Our ticketing system, building one in-house we did that way in the past, but then we kind of moved away from that. I want to get back to that, as a cost savings and things like that. And it also makes it where we could design it more for our district. It's not something that works somewhere else that may not work here. So it was just to simplify it, to get rid of that cost, and to, give us more control over what we have when we're using it. Also, we have like an in-house inventory management system now. I felt like we were kind of getting away from doing a really good job of managing our inventory. I mean, as technology continues to grow, there's more and more moving parts that we need to know, how much we have, where it's at, all those things. So that was another thing that I wanted to bring and update and kind of, bring a little bit more accountability. This one is a big one of mine, proactive instead of reactive. I feel like there are quite a few things that we could have done differently that I'm wanting to work towards to make us more proactive. I don't like the idea of waiting until there's a fire to put it out. I want to avoid the fires as much as possible. One of the things that I've tried to do myself in this role is to be more open and with letting people know, best practices to do certain things. Another one is cybersecurity awareness. One thing, this is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. I started out, sending out emails to kind of open people's eyes, have them be more mindful of things to, again, allow us to be proactive instead of waiting until someone opens up a phishing email and next thing you know, we've got something much bigger on our hands. And that also kind of goes in line with communication, just always being that person to say, as soon as we know something's down, or as soon as we know that, we need to upgrade things, just kind of keeping that line of communication open. I like to be very transparent. I like to be very, honest with what's going on in the department and how that affects our end users. So That's another big thing. And it kind of goes into the next one as well, the outages, the updates, any upcoming changes, trying to be as thorough with that understanding of what is different and what is upcoming so people aren't blindsided by anything. I think that helps out a lot. And also, again, goes into the next couple of bullet points I've got. Like to work towards consistency. I feel like we're getting all over the place with our technology, and I wanted to build, specific types of technology for specific needs, and trying to keep it consistent across the board. That is not the easiest thing to do, especially in the world we're living in now, where technology is scarce, with all the chip shortages and everything. Trying to get the same thing when you need something is really rough, but I still want to kind of keep us in that state of mind, just because it makes it easier to manage, it makes it easier to support, and it makes it easier to, keep that flow of spare parts, or, just again, back to the support part of it. And I'm big on customer service. I feel like even though we're all a team, at the same time, when you look at it as technology is like the customer service rep for the district. We kind of, your end users are your customers, and you have to remember that most of the time they're going to be more receptive to you if you've got that customer service attitude and that spirit than if you come in, you just fix something, you walk away, or you don't communicate with them and let them know that the status of what you're working on. And I feel like that's something that it helps the image of technology, and that's one of the things I kind of want to do is rebuild that image, rebuild that idea with the department that that customer service attitude is a must. And so those are some of the big things that I kind of want to look at and work on and continue improving upon for the technology department moving forward. All right, the next one is more device focused. So with COVID, our device numbers have increased drastically. We've gone from our 1-to-1 program being 5 through 12 to now 1-to-1 that's K through 12. Just student devices alone, you're looking at about 4,500 devices. And that's just the Chromebooks that we have. And then, you've got around 2,300 iPads. We still have teacher devices. And now we've also added our nurses and our secretaries to have more people with that accessibility. So that gives them that freedom to do more with their devices, or if something were to come up. But also if we ever were to be hit with being locked down or quarantined or something like that, you've got that capability right off the bat instead of kind of struggling after the fact to pick up the pieces. Chromebooks. I like to harp on the Chromebooks quite a bit because it was a big change. It was a very dramatic change. One of the big things that I had noticed over the past few years with the Windows devices that the students had was the fact that they were far too open. The students are far too smart because they make it the Windows devices are made very simple to crack and to, get around different security settings and everything. And I really wanted to pull those reins back in and get it where we had more control and where we were turning these devices more into something that we could trust to say that they're secure for the students to be on, and that they could, utilize in the classroom for testing and things like that. And that would be much harder for them to get around our, all the safeguards that we put in place. So that was one of the big things with moving to the Chromebooks. And so far it has been very successful. I myself constantly watch our Lightspeed portal just to see what it looks like as far as what students are doing, what kind of, traffic we have on a regular basis. And you can see that change, and the fact that we now have more visibility because they can't get around our filtering system and everything like that. So that allows me to kind of, be a little bit more proactive on things like what they are actually able to get to and stuff like that. So another one, and we we know we did have some controversy that did go around Lightspeed and YouTube when we were still utilizing the Windows devices for the students. And this was also when I first stepped into this role, when we were kind of facing some of the issues, and to kind of go in depth but not all at the same time. Lightspeed had changed quite a bit, and we were still using the older version. With the new version, YouTube, we have a smart agent, for instance, that allows us to make the YouTube experience more education-based. So as it sees things that it could deem as inappropriate for school or inappropriate for this age range, it learns and it blocks these things. So that has been very helpful, and it also is one of those things where if you look at the trends and the amount of videos that are being watched by the students, it's dropped quite a bit just because of that change. And that's one of those things, again, that goes back to the Chromebooks and the ability to keep them locked in to all these settings that we're putting in place to keep everything compliant. Also, again, that visibility that the new Lightspeed gives is amazing, and it's really nice to be able to break down what's actually being, that's educational usage, what's just pure YouTube usage. And I mean, having all this different data to analyze, and it's things that I can, bring to cabinet, bring to the group, and just kind of, share that kind of information with everybody. And I like that because I'm very much data driven, so it's also a nice addition. Classroom technology. So quite a bit of our classroom technology has already been updated, but we're still working on more of our 5 through 12 now. The K through 4, one of the big things was getting rid of the old smart boards and updating them. So we've pretty much got that done. Now what we're working on is the 5 through 12, getting the old projectors replaced, bringing in new technology for that, putting them on, the big screen televisions with the wireless capability. So then at that point, rather than being locked down to a desk or anything, if you're moving around the classroom, you've got that mobility. Also, I know quite a few of the teachers will want to move their classroom around. Instead of being locked onto that one wall, you've got the ability to move TV around. And so, it was looking at things like that and the trends and the different stuff that the teachers have brought up that they want to see in their classroom was kind of the push for making that kind of change as far as those big updates and as far as in the classrooms. Some other more technical upgrades and updates that we are working on. Well, this one's already done. We have received and installed the new, and I say future-proof wireless access points. The reason I say that is the older access points that we had were, well, definitely not meant for the type of client density that we have. They were much more for like smaller offices, smaller businesses, and so we struggled with keeping devices connected. We struggled with keeping that consistency as far as the movement, the mobility of people. And I feel like as we were adding more devices and we were wanting that accessibility, that was holding us back. So these new APs that we have, they're actually set to support technology that for the most part we're not even utilizing yet. So it's for what we have, it's for what the future holds. It's more capable, and it's hoping that as we continue to move forward and we continue to improve technology, that these will still support us as opposed to looking at something that's already obsolete, basically. Another big one that is kind of exciting, it may not be the biggest upgrade, but moving from 1 gigabit per second to 2, that's a big one to me because we're moving a lot of things to the cloud. And one of the things that you've got to have access to is that bandwidth with all the Google Meets going on, and the fact that we do all of our email via Gmail now. It's those very essential parts of our day are moving to the cloud. So being able to have that ability, so if we did have quite a bit going on at once, we're not worried about it bottlenecking and things like that. The firewall, we're working on upgrading our firewall. That's part of the need to get the higher bandwidth in place. And, it's just one of those things where we did have older equipment, and it doesn't hurt to get us to the point where we can utilize this, continue utilizing it, have something that's actually, supported, just in case there was an issue, anything like that. And one of the biggest ones that we will be undertaking is rebuilding the entire virtual server environment. Right now, we are running end of service life equipment. We have the old servers that are in there that we sometimes have to nurse back to health. That's scary because that is where our PowerSchool servers live. So, we have very important servers running on that virtual environment. So that's why whenever people, bring up technology and what's going on with the department right now, I do fall back on that quite often because it's very important and it's struggling right now. So a lot of the issues we encounter are because it's old, it's antiquated, it's slow, and we're trying to move away from that. So that'll be a big one. Unfortunately, again, with the chip shortages and the lack of just ease of getting equipment, right now they're not even looking at a ship date until the beginning of 2022, unfortunately. But hopefully as soon as we get that, we'll be able to get that turned around spring break, sometime, because that is going to be something that's going to take quite a bit of downtime and just taking things apart in there. But yeah, those are the big things going on in technology. Really, it's just an everyday thing. There's always something new. Technology is a very fluid environment, and I'd like to see us kind of ride that wave a little bit better, kind of keep moving forward with it.
So the rebuilding, so you're thinking possibly spring break?
That's the hope.
2022.
That is the hope. And the only reason it would have to wait until then is I feel like that's going to be the only time that we're going to have that ability to, because with that and the unknowns of how long it would take to bring everything back up, I wouldn't want to risk that anytime before then, even if we did get it pretty early in 2022. So I'd rather wait until spring break, at least the time when we know that if we were down for a couple of days, so it wouldn't be down completely. It's just down like our services, like the website could be down because it can't reach DNS, or the PowerSchool being down. Just looking at those things and that time frame. That's, for instance, that's why we're waiting until fall break next week to do some of the projects that we have ready to go, and we were wanting to get them done. But there are things that there's so many unknown variables that we don't want to risk at any time in between. So that's why I say spring break should be, and hopefully will be, the time we can do that big project.
Appreciate everything you've done for us, Brandon, and just like you said, fluid. That's a term we've used over the past couple of years, and just being able to keep our board meetings going with the environment we've had to go in with accommodating for public commentary in the virtual world. So we truly appreciate it.
Thank you. Speaking of board meetings, that is one thing I could touch on real quick. So I have the majority of the equipment in, and I talked to the executive committee about, what some of the challenges I've had with it. Basically, what I'm doing with this system is rebuilding it to kind of be more purpose-built for what we need it for, because of course that was what it was meant for. So there's just a couple more pieces I need to purchase to put in place to test it some more before I want to. I don't want to put it in here until I know it's going to work. And right now it works, but it's not going to work exactly how we want it to work, and that's the only reason I've not really pushed it. There were a couple more things I want to try on it before I bring it in here, but the plan is to get it in. So what you'll be looking at is the camera system will be right here. There will be two ceiling mounted speakers, one at each end. So it picks up from each side. So these, or I said speakers, I apologize, microphones. So these microphones would not be used for any of the audio for the board meeting. It would all be going through these directional microphones. And that'd be it as far as what you guys see. And the plan is to have that where it's able to do both recording and live streaming, hopefully to multiple services or whatever you guys end up wanting, or what Bridget ends up being able to do, and having all that happening concurrently. So that's the plan. And it is in motion. I have been testing it and playing around with it a lot myself. But hopefully that won't be too much longer. Every time I get into it, there are things that come up and I kind of pull away from it. And I do apologize that it has been kind of set off to the side quite a bit right now.
I want to thank you for making yourself and your staff so accessible very quickly and easily whenever I know that I personally have needs when it comes to some of the technology issues that I have, but I know other board members have experienced the same thing too. And for your willingness to just sit down and be patient with us and explain, what needs to be done to help us with this. You keep us going.
Thank you.
And I have a question about the virtual server. So are we replacing physical servers with virtual? Okay.
Well, no. So the physical hardware has virtual servers on it. So we have a cluster of servers, and within that cluster lives a multitude of servers that are running some of our most important things that run in the background. So like the PowerSchool, the only reason I use PowerSchool as an example is that is one of the things that most people would be like, PowerSchool, I understand. But so what this is just doing is this is taking that virtual environment, moving it to a new, upgraded, faster, better work, all that stuff environment instead. So it's just, so right now that one that we have is probably at least 15 years old. And so it's well beyond end of life.
So how do you make the calculation? Do we have our own physical server, or do we go to a cloud-based server like the PowerSchool?
Well, one of the worst things about cloud-based, okay, let me take that back. It's not just one. There are a couple of them. One of the great things about PowerSchool being here, for instance, is the fact that let's say we did completely lose the internet. Internet's down. Comcast is down. Frontier's down. We have no outside connection. Everybody that needs to get things done in PowerSchool could still continue working in PowerSchool because it lives here. So, some of those big things like that we can keep here, it's always nice to keep them here because that gives you something. So for instance, if you have other things that you're trying to do, but you can still get things done in PowerSchool, you can even without the internet. So that's one of those things where it's kind of, a hard thing to balance. Because yes, it is easier to move some of the things to the cloud, but at the same time, if we want to have that kind of accessibility, it also is harder to move some of those things to the cloud. And on top of that, cloud pricing is pretty atrocious. It's bad. I had just done some research to look at some of the things that we do have in-house and to look at the cloud pricing. And I mean, there are certain things that you're looking at, one service that's $48,000 a month, to keep it running. Whereas once we build everything here in-house, it's done. We've spent the one-time cost, and we're able to move on with it. So it's a huge cost, huge, and that's almost any other services you look at moving cloud. And then sometimes you have no choice, absolutely no choice. And our antivirus is a good example of that. We used to have the antivirus on-prem, but then we had to take that away because they only offer it as a cloud-based service now. So, when you have no other choice, sometimes you have to go with it instead of having something that, you have that easy access to. But as much of it as we can keep in-house, we like to try to keep it that way.
I'm wondering if you could share briefly, like from a teacher's perspective, like if they show up to school and their smartboard doesn't work, what's the protocol they take and what's the time period that takes?
For getting it.
Yeah, to get it working. Let's say it's not working, then they're a tech consultant that they're building,
Yes.
and then how does that work and how much time would that take?
Every building should have at least one tech consultant. Some do have two, but what they're supposed to do, contact the tech consultant. The tech consultant puts in a ticket, and then the ticket queue, we follow through. So there are a couple things to keep in mind with the ticket queue. We'll either check for how important it is, if it's stopping instruction, that gets moved up. It's just watching for importance and kind of filtering through, which is also why I push really hard back to remind people, hey, put it in tickets. That way we can We can check tickets all throughout the day. I can keep track, holding my people accountable and things like that. But normally that turnaround time is pretty quick. Now, it has slowed down just a little bit, but that's also because we've also increased the amount of devices by a few thousand. I've got the 5 techs are running around keeping their bits. They do a very good job of keeping things running. But it is imperative that we kind of keep that system in place because it helps me, it helps them, and it is nice for me to go back to them and be like, hey, I see you got X amount of tickets open, and I'm not, I don't understand why. And kind of starting that communication and pushing for them to be faster on their turnaround. I tell them immediately as soon as they see a ticket come in for their building to take ownership of it. So most of the time, I think it'll be closed that same day. But again, sometimes it does. It's a 24-hour turnaround to look at to make sure you've got that window to kind of go through and prioritize things. But I always tell them I'd like to see a 24-hour turnaround. All right. Anything else?
Thank you very much.
Echo every.
Before, Mr. President, I was just also going to echo many of the things that have been said. And as I referenced to Mr. Perkins daily, he and his department are definitely well received and appreciated throughout the district. Despite the challenges that the technology team faces with some of the infrastructural pitfalls we find here in the city of Richmond still indeed come through. Although Mr. Perkins and his technology team are easy targets to hit when something goes wrong, you can imagine, as you just mentioned, Mrs. Button, something goes down or something is glitching or it's not coming through. It may be as simple as just it's not thoroughly fastened in the back, or it may be even that much more complex. But no matter what, the technology team definitely, with a smile, exercises the utmost of customer service that Mr. Perkins expressed. And as we know, I mean, this is killing Mr. Perkins to be on stage as long as he is. And as you can imagine, with many of his team members within our respective buildings, when they have to respond to such challenges, they do it with a smile and try and provide as much education. And as we know with our technology members, all the time they really just want to get in, get it done, and move on. But one of the things that Mr. Perkins I know has been stressing to them is exercising patience and a sense of resolve. And so we definitely appreciate that. And then finally, under Mrs. O'Brien's leadership as interim superintendent, and along with Mr. Stauff and others that were able to put extra monies toward Mr. Perkins' technology department, we now have an infrastructure here within Richmond Community Schools that is going to assure best practices instructionally as well as for students utilizing the resources that they have in front of them. So kudos to you all, and again, still building upon that success in life.
That is one thing that I have said repeatedly. It's unfortunate because I don't like the idea that it took a tragedy to get us to this point, but it gave us the funds to be able to do, things that we could have been doing for years. But it's really, I mean, these things are big undertakings and they're not cheap. But now we will be at a point where these things will hold us and kind of keep us going for some time, quite some time.
I just kudos to you. The thought of keeping track of, what was it, 6,500, 7,000?
Oh, we're probably looking
Chromebooks
at least, if you're thinking everything we have to maintain, it's over 10,000 devices.
Right. So when that was one of your first ones, was the inventory and keeping track of that, and just knowing how kids walk around with those. It's a monumental task that I really appreciate. And I also wanted to say, it doesn't affect me, but when I see those emails, I know that you're saving yourself work when you do that. And I think it shows that forward-looking focus of, hey, by the way, we know Power School's down, so 14 other people aren't calling you or sending tickets. And I think it reflects well on your efforts and your moving forward. I think that's impressive. I appreciate it.
Well, and kind of to echo off of that, one of the nice things about being that open is it makes people a little bit more receptive. Yeah. Because a lot of times they'll appreciate just having that heads up or having that you letting them know that it's not just their problem, or that you're not ignoring the fact that there is an issue. So I like to keep that as one of the things that I do, and it always will be.
I will say, outside of you all as trustees and myself as superintendent, Mr. Perkins probably received just as much of the roller coaster of appreciation as well as frustration. And when anything bad happens with technology, the first face that comes to people's mind is our wonderful Mr. Perkins. So continue to do a great job, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you very much. All right, moving on to board reports and old business. Have anything on the agenda? So if anyone has anything. Right, I will just, I don't know where to put this, I will just add this here. As you may all know, we are losing our lady madam reporter, Gus Martin. Today is his last meeting. He is our. No,
it's okay.
Is it?
Yes, sir.
Well,
I'll call you later.
Bell ringer, wow. So I will stop there, but thank you very much. I just, Gus has been here about a little over a year. 11 months, came from Maryland, I believe. And then moving on to Muncie to be a full-time sports reporter. So I think that's a little more his passion, but I think he's served Richmond well, and we will miss him.
Thank you very much. It's not as nice a city as Richmond. Just saying that.
Moving on to preview of upcoming meeting and events.
President Weber, trustees, our next upcoming meeting is indeed on the 27th of this month. As we all know, next week is fall recess, the exercising of fall break. Fall recess the entire week. Well-deserved time for everyone to recharge, relax, and try and recalibrate as we come to the close of semester one. As was mentioned, there also is a marching band concert tonight following our board of trustees meeting there at City Hall. We also, and I encourage everyone to drop by. I will not be playing any instrument. I do not have any performing arts talents whatsoever. That is tonight from 7 to 8 there at City Hall. And then also, just a reminder, we have the upcoming board retreat on the 23rd of this month. As we as a board of governors will come back together and continue to try and put our district first. Definitely ahead of Muncie. Anything that's going on in Delaware County. With the exception of below.
I want to recognize Jaime is outside, and he was part of the boys tennis team that won the sectional for 35 years in a row. So good job, Jaime, part of that. I watched him play yesterday. So hard fought game. So I just want to mention that. Good job.
Excellent. Concluding with adjournment and bell ringers.
Yes, sir. And just to piggyback on your reference and acknowledgement of Mr. Gus Martin, we all will be in mourning as he moves on to Delaware County and Muncie schools. The Bearcats, as we all look for and watch out for as they come down 35. Just know that we're sending you in as a secret spy. That's what it is. Just please relay back to us if you can with the as you find out from Muncie. But no, we definitely wish you the best. And as Ms. Weber mentioned, you definitely have exercised a sense of integrity and a sense of professionalism with your reporting that typically is unfounded, especially nowadays. With regard to yellow journalism and sensationalized news, you find a way to skirt around it and really report accurately what it is that you're observing. So we definitely appreciate it. Wish you nothing but the best again. And pretty soon we'll be seeing you on TV. And I'll share after the meeting what nickname I've given Mr. Martin. I won't put it in public record. Definitely won't. Finally, with regard to the bell ringers, we had the senior night fireworks send off last Friday. That was very, very successful. You all as trustees were in approval of celebrating our seniors, and I know that they definitely went out with a bang. pun intended, Mr. Walton, I know that was good with jokes, but it was a great showing. We also had last week the orchestra and choir performance that occurred last week. It also was another great performance, great turnout. The students did a tremendous job collaborating, coming together. Just again, another amazing. Miss Esther Etheridge, female golf champion from East Central Indiana, competed last Saturday in the IHSAA State Golf Meet there in Carmel. Myself and Whoopi, Warren Cook, Mr. and Mrs. Etherington, and several other friends and family of Rachel. I'm sorry, Esther. Who's Esther were willing support. She did a tremendous job despite the 2.5 hour rain delay. It was a wet and wild one, but she's kept her focus and really represented the city of Richmond and community schools quite well. Finally, the Mathapalooza last night. We appreciate you all that were in attendance and those that were tuning in. The idea of one of our interventionists involved into with the support of Mrs. Don Sancini, our elementary principals, secondary principals, collective effort, wholeheartedly. It was just a great representation of what's to come. A lot of fellowship and fun. And as I mentioned before, to have such an event take place in Jack Elstro Plaza. Personally, as I mentioned, Elstro was a neighbor that was growing up, and I'm sure he was definitely looking down on the experience. Excited to see all the smiling faces of children as we used to be those kids being Coca-Cola classes. I mean, I think Mr. Walton was able to get a 16-ounce bottle, actual bottle of Coca-Cola classes last evening. Definitely reminded me of being there. Outside of that, again, we appreciate you all's support, continued guidance, and anything else.
Dr. Wright, whoever was in charge of putting the weather together for last night's event should be in charge for every other event that we had. It was perfect.
I know about a beautiful night.
It was impressive, the number of people and all of the folks that were there. It was a really good showing. Very cool.
Calls. Okay, Mr. Walton, he wanted to order me.
It's good stuff.
Anyone else have anything for the good of the cause? Thank you all. Meeting adjourned.
Bye, Jeff.
See you, Slifer.
Jeff.
We stay at my parents' house.